this discussion, I'd like to talk about how we as business owners can take steps to minimize employee-related legal problems. Thank you for being here today with us, Kathleen. Can you give us some examples of how an employer might protect themselves against legal issues in an ongoing employment contract?
As I talked about in part one of the video, I think the most important thing is to have well-drafted employment contracts, because those spell out exactly what your obligations are to employees and exactly what their obligations are to you. Also, spending time with them on policies and procedure and training, making sure they understand the rules of the workplace so that they can follow the rules of the workplace is very important. The other thing that's extremely important is behaving consistently. There's a real tendency with employers, and it's a human thing, to treat some people more leniently than you do others. We're all human, and we like some people and we may not like other people. And there's a tendency sometimes to if someone comes in late and you like them, to ignore it, and if someone comes in late and you don't like them, to discipline them. This causes real issues in terms of morale. So I think it's very important to treat people consistently, and that's a way to avoid legal problems. Also, document. Oftentimes, employers don't document issues. They'll come to you and say, this is the worst employee in the world, they've been there for 20 years and there's not a single thing that could corroborate that they're not a good employee, because there's been no discipline, there's been no performance improvement plans. So you need to document issues as they come up, and you need to document them consistently in the workforce with all employees. Probationary periods are very important. Probationary periods are essentially your blind date. And I always say on a blind date, if it isn't good on the first date, it's likely not going to get better. And that's very true of probationary periods. If the person isn't good in the 3 months when they're trying their hardest to show you how good they are, it likely won't improve.
What are the most common infractions that you see?
Insubordination wasn't the most common when I started practicing law, but is increasingly the most common. And I think it's just a change, a generational change perhaps, or just a change in workplace environments. So employees feeling like perhaps when someone tells them to do something, they don't have to listen to that. They don't have to follow direction. That's a huge issue. Social media is a huge issue. Disparaging your employer on social media, gossiping on social media, putting inappropriate pictures on social media of the workplace. Those are things that are coming up very frequently. I think sick leave abuse is another one that we didn't see as much of before. People not coming to work, people being disciplined, and then leaving the work and providing a sick note. And I think most employers have seen those sick notes, gone for 3 days, gone for 3 months without any explanation at all. So those are the things that are happening most in the workplace that are the most troublesome from an employer's perspective.
If there was one thing that you would like to leave this conversation with, maybe enlightening business owners, what would that be?
The one thing I would want them to take away is written documentation and written discipline. And if you put something in writing and you don't give it to the employee, you might as well burn it in the fireplace, because it doesn't really exist. An employee needs to be aware of the concerns the employer has with them to be able to use that as evidence in a hearing or a trial or a human rights matter. You need to be able to show that the employee was aware there was an issue. So it would always be document early and document often. If someone is late, don't just assume that that's not going to come up. Recognize that that likely will come up again. And if you don't want it to come up again, just issue counseling. It doesn't even have to be discipline at the beginning, it can be counseling. Then move to your verbal warning, then move to your written, then move to your suspension, and then move to your termination. The point of progressive discipline is to convince people to change their behavior so they can be a productive member of your workforce.
So if they don't know, then they don't know.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.